It's Tuesday, March 2023, first starting KINDER, 2:45 a.m. I can hear my roommate in the room across from mine talking on the phone. There's trains blaring in the distance. I work the next day. Still, I need to get started on this. 2:58 a.m. I'm looking up tutorials for issues with footage capture. Watson appears. He's large. He's fat. He's a friend. What matters is that when he puts his full weight into a single paw against my chest, it hurts. When he pushes his grapefruit-shaped head against mine, I'm powerless to stop it. 3 minutes pass. He's still on top of me. I restart my laptop, probably for something to do with troubleshooting. The whirring of aged gamer laptop fans vibrate in time with his purring. 6 minutes. I've started the game. Watson gets off of me, like he wants no part of mentally ill children arguing and dying in different violent fashions. I think that he just isn't into RPGMaker games. Thinks that they're played out because he doesn't know that KINDER came out in 2011. You are Shunsuke, a young boy who starts the game waking up from a dream of a boy crying into a pond. Don't worry about it. His mom wakes him up and reminds him that he's going to be visiting his grandparents. Sent out to the bus stop, he's greeted outside his house by his longtime friend Mommy. Just by the bus stop is the clubhouse where Shunsuke's friends hang out, and this serves as a sort of rest area for the game. 10 minutes into the intro now, and I'm amused at how gameplay advice that was really pretty important for one's first experience had to be accessed by choosing to be rude to the Chie character. Should you even talk to her to begin with? Shunsuke leaves for his grandparents, and it apparently goes pretty well. Everything stops going well when he gets back. A vision of a boy striking down a grown man. Oh, it looks like he took his leg off. And then we're back to Shunsuke's town, except that it feels like something else altogether. There's a lot of purple, and Shunsuke finds the head of his mom at his front door. Before this can even be processed, he's attacked by a zombified mommy, so his big sister figure is also dead, which I also took hard because green hair is cool. We're not alone, though, because Ryo comes to our aid. The children have all woken up to this distorted version of their hometown, and they've taken to the clubhouse for shelter. It's here that you get to meet Takumi, Ryo, Sayaka, Rei, Hiroto, and Aya. These are all equally important children who have agreed that Shunsuke, Sayaka, and Takumi should now head out to the phone booth in order to call for help. At this point, talking to Chie's cat, my own cat Watson is asleep on me. I'm loving the dialogue, but I'm tired, it's late, and... Oh, okay, Takumi's fucking dead. He never stood a chance. On that note, I'm ready to stop for the night, but I'm enjoying myself and how the game is kind of just telling you what's what. You're gonna have to watch these kids come to the realization of what's going on themselves. There's a real sense of dread and foregone conclusions in the air. When you've already seen 2 people die without any ability to prevent it, but you're also told to save often in case of further death, like, okay, bitch, now you try this out. But, again, at this point, I'm tired. I go to sleep. Years pass. So much time has passed that it is now Sunday, July 2023. Someone else is taking notes for me. As it doesn't exactly work the best for conveying your thoughts more often than not, it ends up being a temporary arrangement. It's 4 in the afternoon, and given how I was barely a ways into this at all, I start over. A lot of it I don't remember, so it's good to run back through. There's been a new Zelda game and plenty of other stuff going on. Twitter is dying. Death Grip concert. I can't keep it all together. I really enjoyed this line. The whole time getting back up to where I was, I'm thinking about Shin Kamen Rider. because that looks tight as fuck. It's just now available to watch. I end up stopping at about the same point that I did the first time I played, when Shunsuke gets back to the clubhouse to inform the gang of what's happened to Takumi. And it's amusing how this sketch kid just shows up at everyone's hangout spot and is like, hey, yeah, I'm Yuichi. Yeah, I did that shit. It's cool. He summons a winged fetus thing to fight before declaring that he'll be killing everyone in the room over time until the 3 mistresses located around the 2 are defeated, and then leaving for his banana snack. Why are they called mistresses? Sayaka, in an understandable panic, flees. Apparently feeling no urgency, it's August 2023 when I get back to KINDER, because life is hectic. Getting back into it, Ryo is an easy choice when it comes to picking who'll tag along, as he has the easy heal-all ability. Sayaka's found without too much difficulty, and the following encounter with an evil teddy bear is straightforward. You have to head into Nippyo Park with Hiroto and Ryo, but before that, there's some line about how fangirls going nuts over a celebrity resembles sperm surrounding an egg. At the park, Ryo gets pulled into a little dome and pulled apart, just absolutely ripped in half. It's gruesome. What's worse than your 9-year-old friend being bisected is that then you have to fight a boss without his convenient healing abilities, which means that we get our shit rocked. Time traveling to save Ryo, it turns out you need to get Hiroto's help first in stopping him from getting pulled apart. Which is realistic, it makes sense, it's making me use real-life knowledge to solve a puzzle. That's good game design. If one of my friends was getting dragged to his death, I would just go get one of my other friends. Fighting the first mistress, Princess Hanauta Mitsugi with 3 live boys, I still get my shit rocked, because her Heart of the September Rain attack sucks. You're essentially supposed to recognize a pattern with her heart beating twice before that attack, so it's not actually that tough to figure out and get around. Trial and error, standard RPG-Maker affair. Having watched Ryo die, I think that I might have a little bit more of an attachment to his character than the others. Also because he's just explicitly useful in combat. I'm just reading his dialogue like, oh god, I watched you die. The gang heads back to the base to recover and check in on everyone else. And they're alright. Afterwards, you're sent out with Aya and Rei, which means no healer. You search around, nothing turns up, and suddenly Aya is gone. It's at this point playing the game that I actually hear a police siren blaring outside, which is a little fitting. Aya's missing, which of course immediately is just gonna have me thinking, oh, okay, another dead kid. Okay. Yuichi calls to taunt you about this, references Saw, which tracks, and you just have 40 seconds available, repeated enemy encounters, you're wandering around the town. Aya's just absolutely dead like 3 times before I get in this, I get a successful attempt. It's basically just trial and error, which is stressful, but not that bad given your fast movement. The town's a pretty meager size. You're supposed to enter this house here as it's apparently Yuichi's, and given the labor of repeated attempts and trying not to run out of time, I'm just looking through all this shit. I'm checking their fridge, I'm using their computer. One time when I was 10, I watched Kingdom Hearts AMVs on YouTube on a friend's computer. Their dad would just walk by squinting at a distance. I'll never know what he was thinking, but it's also really easy to narrow the possibilities down. In the game, though, using the computer just means browsing Yuichi's school website, and goddamn, everyone is hating on Yuichi. But it's also not exactly surprising. This kid fucking sucks. Going through some books speaks of a mind illness, so there's a pretty simple and cohesive sense of theme here. A kid's getting bullied on a website, Aya's depressed, it's a horror game made in RPGMaker. What's here in this segment is vague enough, but still interesting since you don't know entirely what's going on yet, and someone is dead in a chair with their hands cut off. Yuichi's dad. Yuichi did that to his dad. I wrote something in my notes here about how I like how depressed Aya looks. Shout out to character design. I love character design. I want to work with character design. I want to design characters. That's a side note. I appreciate it. Yuichi appears, and Yuichi, who is a child, says the word impudent. And then you have to fight! Rei's Hysteria move deals like 200 damage. It's not a tough fight. Combat in KINDER is more about either brute forcing your way through or just using context clues, almost like another kind of puzzle for the game. It's not revolutionary, it's also not bad. It works totally for what the game's trying to get done. Afterwards, you head back to the base. The others are getting debriefed on what went down. Aya comes clean about being morbidly depressed, and apparently everyone in this town, their parents are also morbidly depressed. Everyone is morbidly depressed. I'm personally morbidly depressed. Everyone is morbidly depressed in KINDER. Except for Shunsuke's parents, allegedly. Rich kid vibes. Not reading the room, Shunsuke references that Anakin quote about hating sand. That's cool, though. That's cool. I enjoyed that. Hiroto reasonably suggests, big brain, that the group needs to eat. So it's decided that the hag shop is the next move, exploring the nearby apartments coming after. There's a little bit here about Aya giving her mom a parking ticket that was really endearing to me for whatever reason. At the same time, Sayaka and Ryo are acting out the ending of an affair between a boss and a secretary. Sometimes this game feels like those times where you meet a kid that's had way too much unmonitored internet access, which is kind of topical. Like, you see that Mr. V shit? Like, fucking Andrew Tate. At the hag shop, it doesn't take long to have what's needed. Hiroto describes root beer as the berserker of the beverage world. Hell yeah. Mug Nation. Barks Army. Of course, this game being what it is, the door won't open, leaving everyone trapped in the shop to fend off the second mistress, Princess Hidekata Sakuragi. Which still isn't worse than the conversations that I've been forced to overhear standing in line at rural gas stations back where my family had a farm. I grew up on a farm. The things I would hear women say trying to get the person in the bathroom to hurry up so the line could move. I was just trying to buy soda. The second mistress uses a move called Mysterious Pleasure that recovers all health. You're supposed to disable it using a diamond bell item that you find on one of the shelves of the hag shop. It pays to pay attention. Shunsuke collapses, leading to another flashback sequence. This time you're controlling the vision's Yuichi, wandering a blue and hazy figment of the town. The little star clusters give way to cutscenes of what seem to be his memories, giving the impression of a distant, neglectful father and a mother ridden with a sickness not taken seriously by those around her. Are you picking up on themes here? It's a nice sequence that breaks up the flow of what's gone on so far, not needing to worry about whether or not you're about to accidentally let a kid die horrifically. Don't worry, though, everything's still terrible. Yeah, Yuichi's mom unalived herself, or whatever you're allowed to say on this dumbass platform. I'm sure that trying to maintain a channel won't have me continuing to feel that way. She fucking jumped, dude. Having seen the building in the vision, it's apartment time! Apartments can be cool and uniquely comfortable. I've really had some nice memories in apartments, but it's KINDER, so no. Exploring the building is a process of going floor by floor and seeing which doors will even open to begin with, then checking everything around the room. You'll find notes that suggest some kind of puzzle coming up. Rei starts getting understandably restless once the search seems to come up fruitless and runs off on her own, which is less understandable. Like, how many kids have died now? But, you know, not a critique, just like, damn. Leaving a room, you get a hot actor pinup. Not entirely sure of the joke here, but I'm into it. Hiroto also runs off on his own to investigate further, leaving Shunsuke alone. Or is he? Ray's voice sounds through the elevator doors, and she's stuck inside. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to run off alone after all, and the elevator continues ascending on its own. I got my hand stuck in an elevator door once. It closed on me one time. I was like 4. I was at the mall. There was an arcade with a Marvel vs. Capcom machine, which I was just absolutely enthralled with. Still am. It still guts me that malls don't have arcades now. Like, we get like retro places that have pinball machines and sometimes really good fighting game selections. I don't care for the barcade type stuff. Sometimes they're good. Often the games just aren't. They're like a minor attraction. They're hardly getting any upkeep. You played Ninja Turtles, the screen is like half as bright as it's supposed to be. Some drunk guy is throwing up on you, talking about the next season of The Boys. Oh, but yeah, no, like the elevator thing, I was fine. I got to play Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter after, which I think still is the only time I ever got to play that one. My dad saw Cody from Street Fighter Alpha and was like, oh, he's in like a prison jumpsuit. Okay, he's a bad guy. You can be Captain America, like fighting the bad guy. So it was chill. I was fine. Unlike Ray, whose elevator trap is the reason for those password hints preceding this. The first time I got here, I botched this, and yeah, it falls all the way down from the top floor, and Ray's gone. It's pretty tense and nerve-wracking, and the game jumps immediately to Hirota's perspective, who is promptly attacked. I messed up the sequence too, but also I think that I was pressed for time when playing through this part. I already knew I'd be reloading to save Ray, so I was just like, whatever, man. 5 days later. Last night I dreamt of a bunkmate dying while I was stationed overseas. According to my notes, I don't remember it, but I also wrote that it was a good day in which I ate Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Rode the newest Chainsaw Man. And it's back to the depressing apartment where different numbers are tried. I get Ray killed several times. Man. A couple tries though, and Ray's saved. Fuck you for feeling relieved. Now the game wants to kill another kid. So it's to Hiroto's perspective, where he's pursued in the apartment by the final mistress, Princess Utsuroi Momogi, or Momogi. I wonder why they're called mistresses. Hirota's gonna die. You're brought into battle, you're supposed to aim for the eyes when getting away so that she won't be able to track you, and look for items around the apartment to concoct some kind of a solution. The solution is that Hiroto knows how to make a goddamn Molotov cocktail! Wonderful children in KINDER. I love them. Get the right stuff, light the hag on fire before the time limit runs out, and it's another kid saved. Thank God. All in all, honestly, it's a really cool sequence. I appreciate the pressure of just being alone with this thing floating after you with a time limit looming over it all. Now that the kids have even more reasons to be in therapy the rest of their lives, or at least to develop a debilitating reliance on illicit substances, it's time to get back to the base and link up with the other traumatized... Oh, okay, look at those dudes just standing there. This is chill. Except that Aya vanished, and they're just standing there to wait to deliver that news. Like, 2 of these kids just almost got slaughtered. What are we doing here? The good news is that it means that you get Ryo back in the party, and that means free healing is back at your disposal. They call attention on the fact that Shinsuke's been going at it for a while now, and could probably use a breather, but he's just built different. He's gonna see it through. These kids have done more for missing children in a few days than my local police have in the last 5 years. And my city is only kind of a surreal fog of dream logic hellscape. The most glaring difference is that mine has more 7 brews around. Some searching around town without much to show for it until a spooky keychain of hers is found outside the police box where that one kid died, God bless his soul. We've had several close calls by now. It's all Aya. Dead kid number 1 is old news. What's new news is that we've come upon a building that's scheduled for demolition, and you know what happens when you have a kid in a building that's getting demolished. That's right, run in. Inside contains an especially dead dog, but also a flashlight, so that's a win, and that calls for proceeding on up. I was super into Tokyo Ghoul when Ri was still coming out. The ending felt pretty rushed, but I remember it fondly overall. I only saw like a little bit of the first season of the anime. It was very... yeah, you know, the manga's a lot better. Things are dark wandering inside, and an alarming thumping noise signals when Yo has mysteriously disappeared from the party, which is distressing because he's a useful child. I had a friend disappear one time. Thankfully, it becomes clear that he just wandered off, like an idiot. And then he makes a, like, nyah face. His, stairs line almost salvages my patience here. Coming out onto the roof, there she is, just considering jumping off. I get it. Yuichi does more of his little antics and solidifies himself as the "you should kill yourself now" guy, who I'm not going to depict or name. He tells us about this being the scene of his mother's very own jumping, except that she didn't. He pushed her. He's one of those don't come to school tomorrow type kids. Yuichi departs, challenging us to meet him out by the pipes after school, where everyone will know we're total pussies. God, I really thought I was about to have to stop Aya from trying to Kermit. Looking in the inventory, a pistol belonging to Aya can be seen. It's tense playing through the segment not knowing what's coming, wondering if something is going to happen to her, because she's one of the more distinctive characters in the game. Her dialogue about her parents' divorce helps to shed some light on her disposition. I had learned earlier on that KINDER has collectible tin boxes that make things easier with the final boss, so I diverted from the pipes to finish that out. There's a little tree maze section in the overworld containing one that takes some trial and error just from not knowing where you can and can't maneuver. Looking back at the footage is a little hilarious. Another is located through the side of the abandoned building. The last one is in the Hag's shop. I felt a great deal of appreciation for Mr. Bear and his graciousness. This isn't a game you can level grind in, and it's not known for its combat system. The experience here isn't really about the challenge. With that being said, it's pipe time. Reading a mysterious book on the ground, which, being totally honest, this would happen to me too. We come to a Shunsuke dream sequence back in his home, where his mother proclaims that she is sorry for all that alive stuff. In his room is also Shunsuke, or inner wounded child Shunsuke. I have one of those too. Who gifts Shunsuke Prime with the white rose ring, a gift from the prince. From there, the world takes on a different sort of dreamy appearance that reminds me a little bit of Yoshi's Island. Have you played that shit? It's incredible. Please play Yoshi's Island. It contains a suicide bed that kills you. The dream world, not Yoshi's Island. It contains a suicide bed that kills you. And that rules. Speaking to all of the Santas and then the rabbit in the center leads to what I referred to in my notes as the abused mother show. I then said that it was just like Seinfeld. These notes are from a year ago. Looking back at the footage, it's more like Dr. Phil. Maybe Oprah. There are flash drives containing KINDER under every seat. Or maybe it's like one of those murder documentaries. At this point in the playthrough, I was finding myself thinking that I was really enjoying the direction that the game was going in. The sequence goes on for a while, but it's genuinely uncomfortable. It has such a good sense of presentation. I don't know who Gabe Lesnar is, though, even as I previously admitted, a year later. This prompted me to look him and his gorgeous portrait up. The segment is very yaoi-pilled, and that's beautiful. Oh. Yeah. A change of scenery distracts from the note that ended on. It's okay, everything is pretty, it's a world of wallpaper. It was here, at this point, Shunsuke is confronting Yuichi, and I was wondering if there was something of a spiritual connection between the two, maybe something of a mirroring between Shunsuke's home life, distant parents, and Yuichi's. Maybe, admittedly, less me wondering and more the game just telling you point blank. We learned that the strange book we've picked up was a gift to Yuichi from his father that basically led to a sort of awakening within him. I think this is the closest we get to an explanation on the supernatural elements of the story, and following this is what's likely the biggest reveal in the game. It was Shunsuke's mother that Yuichi's father was having an affair with, which explains Yuichi's, killing her. I feel bad for thinking back to the Dr. Phil comparison. I feel worse for thinking of Jerry Springer. Yuichi refers to what went on with his mother as a mind illness. Do you remember the mind illness? Then we get to see a photorealistic dog. Yeah, this is all a little more than standard delinquency. Here we learn that the Yuichi that Shinsuke has been talking to is a manifestation of Yuichi's heart imprinted upon the book, revealed by the real Yuichi showing up, who then explains that all of the children selected for the Friends game had parents with similar mind illnesses, or were someone like Aya dealing with her very own. Sure, okay. I like the heart being shown here, like these two are long-lost brothers coming into knowing each other because of the worst of... See, this game keeps having me like, okay, this is cool, I've seen stuff like it before, and then it'll pull something that actually jolts me. Here's what Pipe Time is all about, though, a fight with Yuichi proper. Stabbing him with scissors repeatedly, it gets the job done. Coming back to reality, or Murder-Suicide World, or Silent Hill Elementary, Shinsuke's friends watched him space out and left him alone to get the rest of the crew, which seems terribly irresponsible given everything, but the squad is here. And they've set their minds on confronting Yuichi at his own home. Perusing Yuichi's home shows his dad admitting to infidelity through Yahoo Answers. I appreciate that the environment is all black and white save for the screens and flowers. The room before the final fight is just gorgeous. You get to pick who you take with you, so Ryo, with his healing ability, was a sure choice. Entering the fight shows a pretty cool new visual for Yuichi, and then, sure enough, the Eternal Force Blizzard ends it immediately. I felt a little regretful at first before realizing there was a bit more afterwards, but it's closer to the final fights you tend to get with a lot of role-playing games where it's more of a scripted cinematic thing, like a major payoff for surviving the fight beforehand, except instead of Cloud Strife beating the hell out of a shirtless Sephiroth, it's emotionally stunted, depressed children wailing on each other over an earthbound background. Yuichi despairs while freezing the entire party, save Shinsuke. His text here actually kind of resonates. Stuff like how cognitive behavioral therapy can be used to ignore worsening external circumstances, victim blaming, that kind of thing. It's stuff like this that I really appreciate with KINDER. After this, Yuichi monologues, lamenting everything that's brought him up to this point. The dynamic between Shinsuke and Yuichi is on full display here, and it's heavy. There's something alluded to almost like a dysphoria. I like how tender things get to being between these two characters, instead of just going on full, revenge story. This leads to Shinsuke letting out the secret that he and his mother were actually his traveling father's secret family. As in, he's the product of an affair. It's this last little bit here that really cements their dynamic. Then, Jesus Christ, it's another child with a gun. But that's okay because there's photorealistic cat accompanied by Vocaloid music. It's that sort of back and forth with the tone that gives this such an authentic sort of personal project made by one person feel. Sure enough, driving that home, Yuichi is gone. Right there. The screen cuts to black in sync with Shinsuke shutting off the TV, and Shinsuke reflects on everything that's transpired. I honestly was really into this whole monologue. It struck me as the most three-dimensional writing on display throughout the whole thing. His admission of his treatment towards Yuichi mainly stemming from him needing to be kinder towards himself, which gives us the title of the game, KINDER. I don't know why it dawns on me in the middle of recording all of this, a year later, that I was just pronouncing the title wrong the whole time. I've been going through a lot. I'd already really enjoyed the character dynamics between him and Yuichi, so this capped it off. It gave more to Shinsuke's character than just altruism or being a good person for its own sake. There's not a lot that gets explored regarding the rest of the characters in the game, but what we do get with what there is great. This leads to an after-credits sequence depicting Yuichi waking up to a picnic with his parents. All is well, there's no illness depicted, the adults are present. We don't see any suggestion of abuse or affairs. It's a brief moment, but Yuichi having been asleep would lend itself to some sort of "it was all a dream" theory, but aside from that having some logical holes and not being fulfilling whatsoever for this kind of story, the most straightforward look here is that Yuichi finds rest in whatever sort of afterlife exists in the world here with his family. It's sweet, honestly. I don't know if my parents would have their relationship fixed in heaven, given that they're both remarried. I don't know how that would work. One marriage produced children. It would be kind of fucked up if you went to heaven just to find one of your parents back with their ex. I don't want to think about this. But it's a beautiful way to end the story. Yuichi's at rest. He has his family back. The children back in, I guess, real life are traumatized the rest of their lives, but given that the story is as much about Yuichi as it is about Shinsuke, I'm happy with this ending for Yuichi. Saturday, August 19th, 2023. Hanging out with the cats. Tried to go to a skating rink today, but it was totally empty. I walked around for a full minute yelling, "Hello?" So, the bulk of the game is over, but there's a couple other endings to still be seen, so not over just yet. Next to cover is the everyone dies ending. I sped through a lot of this since it's basically go through the game as normal, but don't do the right thing when a traumatized child is in danger. I felt like a policeman here. It's the blonde kid again. He's always gonna die. The game was rigged from the start. Business as usual, so no need to cover what's already been gone over. Now, some of my footage from this was corrupted. I'm just now finding that out, so I'll be linking to the channel I got the video material for this part and the other ending from in the description. You know, maybe it just didn't hit me right the first time, but Ray's "them's the breaks" is wild. It reminds me a lot of being told to try not to feel too bad when your mom fucking dies in the first Shin Megami Tensei. The first preventable death is Sayaka's, in which you try to go through the window to her rescue. She's already a goner. When Go died, that shit hurt. He had a healing ability. I didn't want to lose him. It's also just super gruesome, and it just goes to show why you should never, ever, under any circumstances, let it go. You have to hold on to everything in your life, even if it hurts or people are going to die. Shinsuke's reaction here matched my own. Aya is next up. Similarly traumatizing. It's an actual fountain of blood while Shinsuke monologues. Nothing that a green room won't fix. Yuichi's dad is dead. Yeah, we've seen it. I hate Yuichi's dad. I'm glad that root beer is still appreciated when your friends have been slaughtered. It breaks my heart that I lost the footage of entering 420, thereby killing Ray with the meme number, because I know it could have done a lot for me, and I've never done anything wrong in my life. Similar to Ray's elevator puzzle, Hiroto's conundrum is easy to screw up, so this is something you're likely to see when trying to do a blind playthrough. I never saw the full extent of it before this though, and it's a lot. I was pretty taken aback with what happened to him here, and this is following a character's full-on decapitation. God damn. Rest in peace, King. Shinsuke is struck with the realization that with this final loss, he's completely alone, the sole survivor of the Friends game, and he envisions the bodies of his companions in front of him. And then, in a tonal shift that shouldn't be a surprise at this point, the OG dead kid Takumi appears as a newly appointed Archangel. Shinsuke is whisked away and granted success as a bar owner, referred to affectionately as Shinsuke Mama. I really wasn't expecting what was such a dark way of letting things play out to result in what was essentially a gag ending, but also it's not that surprising considering everything, and I had a good time engaging with the implications of Takumi finding life as an angel, Shinsuke being granted passage to what's basically a higher plane of existence. It felt out of left field, but it also fits in pretty well with the general nature of the game, and a displaced boy's unchecked emotions turning its surroundings into a ghost town from hell. In some ways, it's kind of a sweet ending, as depressing as the conditions have to be for it to occur. Shinsuke seems to be doing pretty well for himself in the end. This makes what I noticed as a small cross next to Takumi's corpse particularly interesting, as if he's marked upon death for something greater. Maybe he's just Catholic? There's only so much to speculate on, the narrative doesn't go all out with ideas like this, but it's a detail that I really appreciated when I noticed it after this ending. Last to cover is what's referred to as the killer ending, arguably the darkest of the three. If one of the preventable deaths occurs, but not everyone dies, this plays out, so it's likely to be the default ending for a lot of people going through the game for the first time. Yuichi claims he's bored of this and sends everyone back to their old lives, save for the memories of what has transpired staying with them forever. Great. Shinsuke's mom is alive, and that's cool, but for Shinsuke, the damage is done, and the children who had perished are seemingly erased from existence. Guilt-ridden over what happened to them, his first response to seeing Yuichi outside his house is to strike him dead. An undead mommy, if you even remember her by now, because I almost forgot, appears and explains the 3 different endings to the player. It's less like alternate routes that the game offers, and more like prolonged fail states. Now, arguably not as meta in intention or function, but it does strike me as a precursor to the layered execution of another independent RPG that's much more in the mainstream by now, Toby Fox's Undertale, which came out 5 years after this. Now, this aspect of Rekinder's layout explores the volatile nature of its setting, survivor's guilt that follows. Undertale has more to do with treating itself as its own almost living, breathing world that you found yourself in. You're engaging with it on its own terms. You're asked to rethink how you approach games like it and find reward in coming to recognize the various entities throughout as having their own agency. Less of a practice in troubleshooting, more an attempt at elevation of its art form while enjoying the conventions that it's drawing from. It's also not the first of its kind when it comes to the idea of, quote, deconstructed RPGs, or whatever the current term games of its type are. So I don't mean to be reductive towards Rekinder and making such comparisons and bringing up how they differ, so much as it is that I appreciate things like this all the more, recognizing what comes across to me as a sort of through line, even if I don't presume the former to have been an influence on the latter necessarily. It gets mentioned in the last ending shown, but Rekinder is actually a remake of a game made by the same author, Parun, appropriately named KINDER. There's not a lot out there on it, it's not translated unlike the successor, so unfortunately there isn't much that can be said. My understanding is that, aside from some story differences, the tone may have been somewhat lighter. It'd be nice to see this one translated as well, but it's not something I'm holding out for. I'm personally much more interested in Parun's other works, as Rekinder seems to be the improved, complete package. Of Parun's other works, some were translated, just not all of them, so I'd like to look into what I can, because the stuff looks interesting. VG Person translated Rekinder into English, which I'm extremely thankful for, and it's clear from her website that she's done a lot to bring independent works over into the West. People like this are important and deserve recognition for bringing further attention to underground artists, making things like these and giving these works a new life for a new audience. Even if it isn't the most complicated or technically proficient game, even of its own time, there's always going to be unique soul to something made with means accessible to an everyday consumer with a voice all their own. That's the very nature of works that tend to interest me the most, and I'm grateful to people like VG Person for enriching others' lives, making things like this all the more accessible. Parun's If from 2004 was translated by Vortex Person, who spoke of intending to translate at least one more of their other games. Parun's works included Angel Suite, Kinder, If, That Summer's Busiest Sea, Before You Forget, Sweet Halloween, Honey and Swallowtail, Heisei Pistol Show, Iron and Solder, Yuichi-kun and Rice Cooker, Maria's Suicide, Alice in Wonder Family, and finally, Rekinder. Besides If, I found that Heisei Pistol Show from 2008 was translated by Patchy Illusion, and this one looks really interesting. I love how colorful and authentic the visuals feel. This is all I'm finding as far as what works by Parun have been translated, with Rekinder definitely being the most well-known of them. They'll all be linked in the description, so definitely check them out if you're interested. I didn't want to discuss this and everything up to this point. What's really heartbreaking is that Parun passed away in 2011, taking their own life. They can't see how their craft has lived on since then, whether through rediscovery or their works just finding a place in a rapidly growing overall canon of these off-kilter pieces that, compared to AAA output, it feels as if you're just given a window into someone's soul. Reading what little there is available on Parun and everything they made, there tends to be some discussion on what about them could be gleaned from reading into these games. Looking at the thematic undercurrents and the suicidal motif of Rekinder. I don't bring that up to employ some sort of moral grandstanding because I understand the curiosity, especially when it's following the knowledge that you won't be able to have any kind of answers to why it is that someone like this isn't around anymore to continue making things and just living the proper life that was deserved. At the same time, I think that using something like this as a platform to try and conduct an ill-informed faux investigation or character study would be exploitative towards someone who composed some wonderful little experiences and made them available to anyone free of charge. Going through something like Rekinder, it can be understood that Parun recognized pain, how it can be devastating to lose your family to choices and circumstances beyond your control. That's a quality that isn't exclusive to them, but it's not something I appreciate any less. It's something I've experienced, and that's the most that I would comfortably or ethically intuit from this. The bottom line is that creations like this deserve to be cherished, discussed, analyzed, preserved. To me, Rekinder is exploring the idea of childhood helplessness through an on-screen, larger-than-life depiction and through feelings that its scenarios evoke. A sadistic and antisocial boy capable of more than anything a real-life child would ever be able or willing to do is employed as a vehicle to analyze and learn to empathize with. He's opened up to show a sort of dependency on someone who ended up being his object of torment, as if that was his learned behavior amidst a fantastical and exaggerated rule set. What could be dismissed as an edgy and unrealistic villain leads way to a discussion of broken homes and how debilitating the feeling of displacement is. Engaging with what's here doesn't give you a new lease on life. It's not intended to, but there's a sense of nourishment in looking at it on its own terms and reflecting on whatever common threads there are between yourself and someone who may have experienced something similar that went on to make something like this. There's an innate encouragement there to go on from your own experiences and do the same in making something all your own, however awkward or unrefined it may be. In the current internet hellscape of generative AI, art being so commonly delegated to the generalizing brand of content, people being laid off everywhere, that continues to inch away from being a novel concept for a project and begins to feel more like a moral imperative. I'm thankful for Rekinder and anything like it. All of its off-kilter humor, tonal shifts, for its reminding me of other works made by people that are no longer with us. And even though I think it needs to have its praises sung further, I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. It seems to get looked upon as sort of like a cult classic amongst what's already a very niche subgenre. Some of it, no doubt, is attributed to the death of its creator following the game's release, treating it as this sort of haunted project. That's the kind of thing I didn't really want to engage with here. For obvious reasons, that's in bad taste. I think it does a disservice to the actual text of the work itself, even if I am having fun with it. I laugh at the game because it's laughing at itself, but I also know what it's trying to say, and I understand what it's trying to say. I connect with what it's trying to say. I'm sure that there's further nuances I would be able to pick up on if I was able to engage with it in its original language, or if I knew more about the creator, which is just something that's not going to happen, and I suppose that just has to be okay. So, taking this on has been over a year now, whether or not the end result looks that way, and it was somewhat freeform in approach. While what I'm going for isn't exclusive to something like Rekinder, I'm always interested in what else is like it out there, so I'm absolutely asking for any suggestions that come to mind. There's a lot of stuff in that RPGMaker horror niche, which I've always really enjoyed personally. It's also okay if you want to hurt me. It's fine to say that. It's always fine to say that. You can say whatever you want. Nothing bad happens to me. I'm never sad. You can share this to people just for the purpose of showing others just how much you want to hurt me. I think that's great. It's really not an issue. You can go in the description and click on my personal links and listen to music I make and think, I want to hurt this person, this sucks. That's fine. You can share those pages too and discuss the negative feelings that you're experiencing. That's entirely okay. I don't have a Patreon to neglect. I'm not putting a Cash App up. I just uploaded this. There's no ads. If you want to try and hurt me by projecting a negative aura, that's wonderful. I understand. I want to feel it. Come into me. Hurt me. We don't have to be alone anymore. Let me feel it. Touch me. But I also would just appreciate insight, feedback, comments. Do you like Rekinder? Have you played it? How are you doing? Is everything going okay? I know stuff's really rough right now. We don't have any control over anything around us, do we? Times are really tough. That's why I have to just make things.